Hey there, wizards. How's it going? You just arrived here at the Leaky Cauldron. Don't be a muggle, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can stay up to date with everything that's going on here.
And don't forget that you can become a member of the channel and get access to exclusive benefits like badges next to your name and emojis for you to use here in the video comments.
You can also contribute through the thanks button and have your comment stand out from the others. Yeah, I said it really fast just to mess with you who watches at double speed. Between September and October of 1977, near Ottery St. Catchpole, a small town in Devon, England, Amos Diggory and his wife joyfully celebrated the arrival of their only son, Cedric.
Deeply loved by his parents and a source of pride for the family, with every new skill Cedric demonstrated, his father Amos became even more satisfied, growing increasingly certain that his son had a bright future ahead of him.
In 1989, Cedric went with his parents to Diagon Alley to buy his supplies for the upcoming school year at Hogwarts.
At Ollivander's shop, he was chosen by a wand made of ash with a unicorn hair core, measuring 12.25 inches and reasonably flexible. Cedric was very careful with his belongings, and he always kept his wand polished, giving it a special shine that you didn't see on the wands of other wizards his age, who didn't care as much about that. On September 1st, 1989, Cedric Diggory began his school life at Hogwarts.
He was sorted into Hufflepuff, just like most of his ancestors.
In fact, in the Hufflepuff common room, there is a portrait of Eldritch Diggory, Cedric's ancestor, who was Minister for Magic at Hogwarts. It didn't take long for Cedric to become the talk of the school and always be surrounded by classmates. After all, he was handsome, talented, and very kind. At some point during his school years, Cedric became the seeker for the Hufflepuff Quidditch team, where he proved to be very talented. In 1993, in his 5th year, he was named house prefect and also captain of the Quidditch team. This made his father, Emil, very proud. On November 7th of that year, Hufflepuff played against Gryffindor in a match that was originally supposed to be against Slytherin, but they ended up backing out, using Draco's injury as an excuse to actually avoid playing in the heavy rain.
During the match, Cedric and Harry were competing for the Golden Snitch.
Determined, Cedric cut through the rain and wind on his broomstick, not noticing that hundreds of Dementors were flying below him and Harry. It was only after he caught the snitch that he realized Harry had fallen off his broomstick, and he tried to call off the match and invalidate his catch. That wasn't possible, because everyone declared it had been a fair victory. But for Cedric, it wasn't, since his opponent was prevented from continuing in the match by completely external factors. He didn't celebrate or boast about it. Still, Cedric won. Cedric was the first to defeat Harry Potter since he had joined the Gryffindor Quidditch team. At Christmas that year, Cedric went up to Harry to compliment the firebolt broom he had received, always showing how kind he was. In the summer of 1994, Cedric went with his father, Amos Diggory, to meet the Weasleys, Hermione, and Harry Potter for the Quidditch World Cup. Amos Diggory, when introduced to Harry Potter, boasted about the fact that his son had beaten him in the previous school year, and Cedric, embarrassed, reminds his father that he had told him Harry falling off his broom was an accident. But Cedric's father insists that he didn't fall off the broom, that it was a story to tell his grandchildren, that he had defeated Harry Potter.
At the opening of the 1964 school year, when Cedric was in his 6th year, Dumbledore announces that Hogwarts will host the legendary Triwizard Tournament, a competition between the 3 largest schools.
European schools of magic, which had been held for centuries. Due to the high mortality rate in previous editions of the tournament, some rules were changed, altered so that the competition would be safer.
One of these rules is that minors were not allowed to participate.
Those interested in participating in the competition had to enter their name in the Goblet of Fire by the afternoon of October 31st, before the selection ceremony, the ceremony where the goblet makes its choice. Cedric didn't take long to put his name in, and on the day of the champion selection, on October 31st, the goblet spat out with a tongue of fire the names of Fleur Delacour, representing Beauxbatons, Victor Krum, representing Durmstrang, and Cedric Diggory, representing Hogwarts. With thunderous applause, Cedric stood up and was led to the room next to the Great Hall to receive instructions. Standing in front of the fireplace with his arms behind his back and away from the others, he was surprised when Harry Potter entered the room. Fleur even thought that Harry had come to give them a message. When it was confirmed that Harry was the 4th Triwizard champion, Madame Maxime and Karkaroff were not pleased. After all, Hogwarts would have 2 champions and therefore more chances to win. Cedric never judged Harry at any moment, while the others in that room did. But as they left, he brought up the subject with Harry, asking how he had managed to trick the goblet and put his name in. Harry claimed he hadn't done it, and Cedric, even though he was suspicious and didn't believe it, was kind and didn't press the issue. In the weeks following the selection of the champions, Cedric Diggory received massive support from the school. Even the Slytherins saw this as an opportunity to humiliate Harry Potter by using offensive badges that said, "Potter stinks," and "Support Cedric, the real Hogwarts champion." Cedric, however, didn't find it funny at all and didn't like his friends wearing those badges. He even asked them to stop. A few days before the first task of the Triwizard tournament, Cedric and the other champions went through a wand weighing ceremony, where the wand maker, in this case Garrick Ollivander, inspects the champions' wands to see if they are completely suitable for use in the tasks. Garrick praised how well Cedric cared for and maintained his wand. And on that same day, the champions went to take photos for the Daily Prophet.
In the article that came out in the newspaper, Rita Skeeter practically ignored Cedric's participation in the tournament.
This made his father even more upset, because his son had been chosen for the tournament. And then Harry comes along, taking some of the spotlight away from his son.
So this article doesn't even mention Cedric. He gets really mad.
Shortly before the first task, Cedric was walking with a group of 6th-year friends toward the charms class when, suddenly, his backpack tore open.
He asked his friends to go ahead and tell Flitwick that he would be a few minutes late, but he would be in the classroom soon.
While he was picking up his things, Harry Potter showed up to help him, and he told him that the first task would involve dragons, that each of them would have to face one and get something. Cedric gets a bit suspicious and asks why Harry was doing that, and he explains that everyone else already knew.
So it was only fair that he knew too, so everyone would be on equal footing. On November 24th, the first task took place.
The champions were taken to a tent where they waited for instructions and where the drawing took place to decide which dragons they would face and the order in which it would happen.
Cedric Diggory was drawn with the Swedish short snout dragon and the number 1. That means he would be the first to face the dragon.
In front of the dragon, Cedric used an advanced transfiguration method, turning a stone into a Labrador dog to distract the creature and draw its attention away from the golden egg, which was what needed to be retrieved by the champions. Cedric manages to grab the egg, but the dragon ends up losing interest in the transfigured Labrador and turns its attention back to the champion, shooting a burst of fire that hits the side of his face. The task ended when Cedric grabbed the egg, the dragon was restrained, and he was immediately treated by Madame Pomfrey, who applied a kind of orange paste to the burn so it could heal. Like all the champions, Cedric needed to decipher the clue inside the golden egg. That way, he could move on to the second task. He ended up getting help from the fake Alastair Moody, who gave him a hint about what to do with the egg. So, Cedric took his golden egg to the prefect's bathroom on the 5th floor, where he submerged the object and listened to the clue underwater.
It took him some time to decipher it, but he finally understood that the second task would be in the Black Lake, that it would involve the Mer people, and that they would take something he valued very much.
As a tradition of the Triwizard tournament, the Yule Ball took place at Christmas. Cedric Diggory was Cho Chang's date, with whom he had a bit of a romance. Harry was furious, very jealous about it, and it made him develop a bit of a grudge against Cedric. On the night of the ball, after the party was almost over, Cedric pulled Harry aside to give him a tip about what to do with the golden egg, since he wanted to repay Harry by telling him about the dragons. The day of the second task arrived, and Cedric Diggory skillfully used the bubblehead charm so he could breathe underwater. He was the second to reach the Mer people's underwater village, where he found Harry and warned him about the time. Since Harry was worried about the other hostages, and didn't seem to be making any progress to get out of there. Cedric returned to the surface with Cho Chang, who was the one the merpeople had taken from him, going a minute over the time limit.
With that, he received 47 points, tying with Harry for first place in the tournament.
Before the third task, Cedric Diggory accompanied Ludo Bagman to the Quidditch field to see the maze that was being grown there, and he was very annoyed by the fact that they built the maze right on the Quidditch field. But Ludo Bagman reassured him by saying that the field would return to normal after the task was over. So, on June 24th, 1995, when the third task would take place, Cedric Diggory welcomed his parents at the school, where he spent the day with them, having lunch and walking around the school. And afterwards, they stayed in the stands to watch the conclusion of the tournament. During this family gathering, where Harry was with Mrs. Weasley and Bill, Amos Diggory tried to confront Harry there, talking about the articles that were coming out in the media, as if it was his fault. And Cedric asked his father not to do that, because it wasn't Harry's fault.
So Amos Diggory apologizes to Harry, and Cedric gets very embarrassed about it. Since Harry and Cedric were tied, they were the first to enter the maze.
Soon, Cedric encountered Hagrid's gigantic blast-ended Scroots, and he barely escaped, almost suffering several burns. At some point inside the maze, Cedric Diggory was attacked by Victor Crumb, who was under the Imperius Curse, and tortured him with the Cruciatus Curse. Luckily, Harry shows up and manages to stun Victor Crumb, saving Cedric from this incident.
Although, at this moment, they briefly continue together inside the maze, Cedric separates from Harry again.
Cedric spots the Triwizard Cup and runs toward it. However, on his left side, an Acromantula appears and attacks him.
And Harry was coming from the other side as well because he had seen the Triwizard Cup.
Harry helps Cedric once again. Together they attack the Acromantula, and he manages to escape. Having been saved by Harry twice in the maze, Cedric insists that Harry should take the cup, because he deserved to win, because he stopped to help him. But Harry also argued that Cedric helped him with the second task, and Cedric said that Harry helped him with the dragons, and they kept going back and forth about who helped the other. So Harry simply says, "Let's take the cup together, and the victory will be for Hogwarts. And for me, it doesn't matter. It will be Hogwarts' victory. Everyone will be happy." Cedric agrees, and together they grab the cup. Unfortunately, it was a portkey, and it took them to Little Hangleton, to an unknown cemetery. Cedric is surprised to see that he has been transported, but he still stays alert, thinking that it was part of the task. He doesn't lower his wand, and then from a part of the cemetery, Peter Pettigrew appears, holding Voldemort's rudimentary body. Harry doubles over in pain from his scar, and Cedric, not understanding what was happening, asks who that was.
Voldemort simply orders Wormtail to kill the other. And so, Cedric Diggory is struck by the curse Wormtail casts, dying instantly. Voldemort returns through a ritual, using his father's bone, his servant's flesh, and Harry's blood.
During the events that unfold in the cemetery, Harry and Voldemort engage in a duel, where their wands become connected due to the phenomenon known as priori incantatum. And with that, Voldemort's wand is forced to regurgitate the last spells, but in reverse, so the last people he killed came out of the tip of his wand as echoes of those people's lives. Cedric then asks Harry to take his body back to his father, and along with the other echoes, Harry's parents, Bertha Jorkins and Frank Bryce, distract Voldemort so that Harry can grab the cup and get out of there. Harry Potter, with Cedric's body, returns to Hogwarts, and when everyone realizes what has happened, they start screaming in despair at the sight of the Hufflepuff's body lying on the ground.
Minister for Magic Cornelius Fudge tries to cover it up by moving Cedric to the hospital wing. He wants the body removed quickly to avoid drawing attention from the large crowd.
Obviously, Cedric's parents were tormented, shocked by that reality. They had spent a pleasant afternoon with their son and had no idea that those were their last moments together. Cedric's mother tried to console herself, believing that her son was happy when he died, because he had won the tournament, and she believed that it was still part of the task. Besides, she was also relieved that her son didn't feel any pain and died instantly. Cedric's death was deeply felt throughout the school. On June 26th, the farewell banquet turned into a memorial as a tribute to him, and Dumbledore honored his memory by telling what had actually happened. Even though the Ministry of Magic didn't want it to be revealed, Dumbledore tells everyone that Cedric had been murdered by Lord Voldemort. At 17 years old with his whole life ahead of him, Cedric was a victim of Voldemort's cruelty and coldness.
But his memory was honored and remained alive in those who stayed willing to fight for the truth and make the world see that Voldemort had returned.
And so, in a tragic, swift, and cruel way, the life of this young man who had a bright future ahead of him was cut short. That's it, my wizards. We'll stop here for now. Cedric's death hits me really hard, especially in the movie, when there's that scene of Amos Diggory arriving there and seeing his son dead, screaming in desperation. And as a father, after I became a father, that scene hits me even harder. So, Cedric's death is one that really gets to me, you know? We didn't even imagine, at least when we were reading the books. We had no idea there would be so many more painful deaths ahead. But it's a death that really gets to me because of that. He was such a young boy, with everything ahead of him, with a bright future. And all of that was destroyed, shattered.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, mischief managed.